Hello, I'm Davey Longworth, and I'm back here at Jericho Beach in Vancouver, British Columbia. It's hard to imagine, but just over 25 years ago, the United Nations held a history-making event on this very spot. Would you believe that over here, 3 huge seaplane hangars once filled this very space? In the summer of 1976, thousands of delegates came to this place from every corner of the world to attend the largest conference ever held on the subject of human settlement. The public part of the conference and the meetings of the non-government organizations who attended took place here at this old, abandoned Royal Canadian Air Force base at Jericho Beach. All that's left now are these old iron railings from the Lions Gate Bridge. And over here, this driftwood sculpture by the carver, Bernard Thor. Look what it says on the plaque. Habitat sculpture. This sculpture by Bernard Thor commemorates the United Nations Conference on Human Settlements Habitat Forum for non-governmental organizations held on this site at Jericho Beach Park, May 31st to June 11th, 1976. A moment in time when people came together to think of their neighbors. This was the first United Nations conference to be held in a major city anywhere. It was like a dream, and we had just 7 months to turn these derelict hangars into an international conference site. This part of the conference was called Habitat Forum. Habitat almost didn't come to Canada. The federal government had recently backed out of hosting an international crime symposium in Montreal, and the United Nations wanted assurances that the Human Settlements Conference would go on in this country as planned. But the Parks Board, chaired by May Brown, and the Vancouver City Council under Mayor Art Phillips were vehemently opposed. They passed a resolution demanding that Habitat be held somewhere else. They were afraid of violence erupting if the Palestinian Liberation Organization and other non-member nations attended. There was a maze of confusion about who was in charge and where in the city the event might be held, if it happened at all. Then finally, Alan Clapp, a TV newsman and freelance producer, stepped out from behind the camera with a design concept and started to bring some of the people who were involved together. It was no small task. But finally, after all the politicking and meetings about finance and security and permits and control were over, it was decided that Alan would form the group to create the Habitat Forum event on the Jericho lands. The original hangars at the Jericho Beach Air Station were built in 1928. The pilots of the squadron flew customs and fisheries patrols and did aerial surveys and mapping for the government. When World War II broke out, Jericho changed. New facilities and hangars were built for the many extra planes needed to oversee British Columbia's vast rugged coast. The seaplane base was disbanded in 1951. Prime Minister Lester Pearson in 1965 announced that the federal government was prepared to give the huge waterfront property back to the people of Vancouver. But who would control it, and for what purpose? The provincial government loaned us a portable sawmill so we could cut our own lumber from logs recovered off the beaches. They gave us the salvage permit too, and they helped negotiate a contract for the use of Jericho Park with a still reluctant Vancouver Parks Board. It was a daunting task and the time was short. But when we saw who was coming from around the world, we knew we had to get it right. Mother Teresa, Buckminster Fuller, Margaret Mead, Barbara Ward, and our own Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau, let alone the high-ranking officials and government representatives from Egypt, Greece, Iran, Ghana, India, Poland, Japan, and many other UN countries. Then in 1975, a group of almost 10,000 volunteers combined their energy with a workforce of 160 artisans, craftspeople, and old-age pensioners, along with 200 private British Columbia businesses who donated money, services, equipment, and technical expertise to convert the derelict old hangars into a conference site. The federal government, thanks to Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, finally pitched in, cut through the red tape, and financed the work with manpower grants. Together, the workforce and the volunteers turned the 5 abandoned hangars into one of the most beautiful conference sites the United Nations had ever seen. Here's what we had to start with. There were 5 old derelict hangars that hadn't been used for years, 3 facing English Bay and 2 back from the shore. Hangar 3 was converted into a theater to show films brought to the conference by delegates. During construction, it housed our portable sawmill. Hangar 5 became the plenary hall, a space big enough for 2,000 delegates where the major speeches and discussions could take place. Hangar 6 was another meeting theater surrounded by rooms where the delegates could get together in smaller groups. Hangar 7 was the entertainment center and the food bazaar, and just for fun, we built the world's longest bar. During construction, Hangar 8 housed all the workshops. During the conference itself, Hangar 8 became the exhibit space for the visiting delegations. All the hangars were connected by covered boardwalks, anticipating Vancouver's rain. We knew the event was so unique it should be documented. But somehow, in the aftermath, the film got lost, and it stayed lost for 25 years. This is the first time it's ever been seen.
What do you think of this sawmill? It's fairly half-decent one. It seems to get a lot of wood cut. So.
Well, it does very good for its size.
Yeah. And it started off with just a real small sawmill, and
We had to expand it, yes, right.
how about do you go expanding the sawmill? What do you do?
We lengthened out the track, made it so we could cut longer timbers.
And what are some of the problems in maintenance, like keeping it going?
Well, the biggest problem is keeping the teeth sharp on the saw.
Why?
Because of sand, gravel, and odd spike.
for the information line out there is simply this, that although we tried over a period of a month, we had one meeting in the middle of December, the second week in December, and we were promised that we would meet with the people who could give us the answers for the work that had to be done in Vancouver in relation to Habitat and the accommodation and all that went with it.
How can we discuss this when you don't seem to understand the distinction yet between Habitat Forum and the United Nations Habitat? The United Nations Habitat that you've been dealing with over these months and the history you went through is downtown. It involves United Nations, it involves government delegates, etc. This is Habitat Forum. It's a separate trip, it was put together differently, it's funded differently, and different people will be here. Until you recognize that distinction, which is a distinction that we work under and which is one in fact, I don't see how you cannot see that yet.
And here we are, a group of people that are willing to say, all right, we realize the inflationary difficulties when we demand more wages. We're saying we'll work here with less wages. And now you're telling us
we didn't even,
Right on,
yeah.
right on.
right, that we don't have to go out and buy those colored TVs and those big
Yeah,
cars. We're not
we
interested.
didn't even do that
Right.
because we created the jobs, you know. It didn't matter if you get paid or not because
It was a job.
It was something that we all wanted to do.
Don't let's get on a misunderstanding here. What we've emphasized is we don't want to place anybody that's working or intending to work on this site out of a job.
As of today, there are 160 people on the workforce at Jericho. That's on being paid workers, which is an incredible amount. And they range from people who are unemployed, which was the basis of the people that we're hiring here, people who are unemployed and on welfare, but it also includes a lot of artists, a lot of craftspeople who are building and constructing and are responsible for what we've built here. We're averaging about 30 volunteers on our workforce each day. And they range from people who are executive directors of companies who come down and do an afternoon's work, to school kids, to old age pensioners who come down to work. But they do everything from carpentry work, to painting, to cleanup, to working in the sawmill, to, well, whatever's happening. We could have a lot more working, but we just don't have the work for them. And it's just a matter of us tripping over one another and just get too many people on the site.
All the designs are made by a group of 5 people, and 2 or 3 of them have some of the main ideas. But the actual part of the design is really in the process, and as we're laying the fabric down and cutting and mixing the colors, the design becomes clearer. The seating in the amphitheater is going to be stitched out of nylon fabric, which has really been one of our most inexpensive materials. It's going to require some 3,000 yards of fabric. We'll have to buy it by the bolt. I think Bill Reed is helping us with the original design. The seating in the amphitheater, it'll sort of make the whole total area really warm and kind of cozy. But besides that, it'll also keep the sound from bouncing up in the rafters, so that when the symphony and other performances are playing, it'll contain the sound.
I haven't had a chance yet to make a living on my art, doing sculptures. So I'm really happy to be and feel like I had a break to being able to work full time and enjoy it.
Well, I'm doing it for 19 years here in Vancouver and exclusively sculpture. I don't teach usually, but in general, but I did teach night classes in the School of Art.
became interested in plankton forms when I heard that they were considered to be on the endangered list. To me, that was a really serious statement, because if the plankton forms are threatened, then the whole food chain in the ocean is threatened.
We're attempting to start some kind of supper for people who want to work. We are having about 25, 30 people staying on in the evening. More people have expressed interest, but they're just getting a little hungry, all right, and would like something, so we're going to put someone else into the kitchen and put light snacks, you know, out so you can munch these, all right? So those people who would like to continue working on in the evening, finishing their work up, far up to it. Remember, we can't pay overtime. I'd love to pay overtime. There's just no possible way that that can happen. President of the Council of Forest Industries, who helped us out, right? He couldn't believe that the wood that we have cut came off beaches and salvaged wood. I mean, we've destroyed completely that goddamn fallacy about wood off the beaches not being of any value, lose teeth of the saw and all that. Now our friends at the Parks Board want the mill. They want to come off.
I think that it will work as a place where people will feel free to come and talk. The texture, I guess, is the best word of what is going on here. Very attractive. I think it will be a comfortable place for a conference to proceed.
Habitat Forum, which belongs to the people, is a good adjunct to the UN and government-sponsored Habitat Conference taking place uptown. I'm impressed with what our people have done, and I think everyone in British Columbia, given the opportunity, should come and visit Habitat Forum.
Across the frontier will be large, early British Columbia type gates, and the covered boardwalks, as it does rain here once in a while, will connect all the buildings. And the reason we're putting the covered boardwalks in is to try and tie all the buildings in together so they're not all separate. And the hangar number 7, which will be the social center where people go to eat. Right? There'll be a village inside there. They'll dispense all different kinds of European food, North American food, to give the place the international feel. Every second post will have a flagpole on it here with 145 flags of all the different nations that are sent up to the United Nations Park. That'll be all over the seawall. Now this is our main plant area. Now the boutiques are going to replace these windows in here. I was talking about.
You're not going to replace all those broken panes, are you?
No, we're going to take the windows right out.
The Jericho workforce is really very pleased that you are the first head of government to visit our site, and we hope that you'll come back during the conference and tell us about your vision for Canada's future. The main reason I want to talk to you about today, after all that's through, is I sense, maybe it's just me, but in some cases I sense a lot of panic on certain people's part about deadlines and getting the thing ready. Brought it in on budget, $916,000, which is just incredible. I mean, I'm really pleased where we're at. We're in good shape, and I like what's going down. I just can't believe the finished work that's happening around here now.
Oh, we've just had a fantastic response. A lot of our regular volunteers that come down every week have come down to supervise the areas. And we've had brownie packs come in and Cub Scouts.
This weekend is it as far as cleaning up the site? Do you have any worries about not finishing the job on time?
No, actually, the job is finished. It's just a matter that the site could be made more and more beautiful. Of course, there's a lot of people down here that are putting a lot of energy into it, and it can just get better and better and better, and this is what's happening. There's just no worries about it being finished at all.
Do you think all this work is worth a 2-week conference? Yeah, it is, because you look at what the conference might do, and it's really worth a lot. Because, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people in Vancouver that are going to see what our city's like.
The teacher asked us if we wanted to come down and help clean up.
What do you think about the whole project?
I think it's pretty good.
The BC scene, and except that it portrays clean water, clean air, and a pleasant environment, it doesn't really have a political statement.
People have become very possessive of the space while they're building it, and that's only natural. And I think as of 2 days ago, I started to feel a change in staff. I feel very proud of them, what they've done, an incredible hardship, and I think have made it happen. There are a few minor complaints, but as I said at the beginning, this is not a deluxe downtown convention center. And if delegates are having a little bit of discomfort, well, maybe it'll make those problems that we're discussing a little more real to them. I just think they've done an incredible job, and I won't make any excuses for them at all.
Habitat Forum is for non-governmental delegations. Over the next 2.5 weeks, architects, planners, sociologists, economists, and other interested people will be taking part in workshops and plenary sessions to discuss problems related to human settlements. Informality has been the guiding rule in converting the old Air Force hangars, and the designers hope the open atmosphere will be reflected in the discussions. So far, about 2,000 people have registered to take part in the sessions, and the organizers expect another 8,000 observers.
I would like to thank everyone responsible for the organization of this forum and everyone who takes part in it. The world is changing. The day when government ministers could meet in secret to take decisions affecting all our lives is over, and I don't think it will ever come back.
They have perfected nuclear power development, and now they want to sell it because it's there. That's the attitude you're dealing with. I mean,
Hey, Pat, what's the alternative? What's the alternative to fusion development?
I don't know. I think you should run for office.
Hey, Pat, answer that question. Answer that question. What's the alternative fusion power? What's the alternative? Answer the question, Barrett.
Will you be quiet and I'll answer it? Will you be quiet?
What's the alternative?
Will you be quiet? Shh. Shh. Okay.
My name is Chief Kaklacha, and these people here are my relations. They have been working with us for many, many years, that I'm very, very happy that they were able to assist me in this welcome to your people.
Thank you very much, Chief. On behalf of the International NGO Committee for Habitat, I take pleasure in welcoming you to the opening session of the Habitat Forum.
I'm getting letters now from 8 and 10-year-olds born after man got to the moon. And it's perfectly clear to that kid man can do anything. And they find, that little kid finds that somebody like myself he can write a letter to, let me know his concern about the, what seems to him to be the older world not paying attention. In fact, we can make our world work. So if we're going to make it, you're going to get it out. The beautiful thing, look around us. Look at this young world here. Sensitivity, tenderness is incredible.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall not stand between you and Mother Teresa any longer. I have great pleasure in respectfully inviting her to speak to you.
We'll say prayer for our brothers and sisters who throughout the world are looking up at us and wanting us to share with them love and compassion. Make us worthy, Lord, to serve our fellow men throughout the world who live and die in poverty and hunger. Give them to our hands this day their daily bread, and by our understanding love, give peace and joy.
you. This is not a declaration that we're amending. This meeting is filled with the NGOs from all over the world representing all sorts of societies. You're here to work on what the conference is doing. And for other NGOs to spend their time trying to do either attack or amend this is rubbish. You're here to deal with the main statement of this conference. That's what we're here for.
And I see three principal goals. One is to push the new ideas, the new concerns, and some old ones to the limit, unconstrained by some of those things which might constrain those of us at the official conference. To also act as the conscience of Habitat, if we stray, if we don't stay on the track, to keep us moving, to let us hear from you, and I'm sure we will. And also to do those things which governments can't do, and perhaps shouldn't do, because there are limits to what governments can do. And there's no limit to what people can do when they are inspired and determined and ready to serve.
Y en nuestro caso,
especially when the Cuban Revolution has been terribly distorted by propaganda, and we have been completely blocked out from any contact in Latin America. This gives us an occasion to expose our experience.
Habitat Forum is a place where the discussions and possible solutions to the problems of the human environment will be discussed. And through this forum, we hope to awaken the consciousness of the world as to the problems of African environment.
I've lived 10 years in the United States, and I have often been confronted with this statement which makes me very angry. Life is cheap in Asia, they tell me. Life is not cheap in Asia. Has anybody ever asked a poor man whether life is cheap for him? It's all right to rationalize bombing people out of existence and say their life is cheap, and doing target practice on their water buffaloes in Vietnam, as they used to do. It's not funny.
There is no need for nuclear power. It's neither efficient, economic, or safe. And we are endangering generations to come by a ruthless, thoughtless, irresponsible grab, which is only of interest either in military terms, which are destructive, or in terms of special interest and competition between nations for nuclear markets.
Now, in Vancouver, on June 1976, on the occasion of the United Nations Conference on Human Settlements, cannot confine itself only to the construction of houses and the enactment of laws, but should include a commitment to sensitize individuals and communities to their own vision of a dignified existence in human settlements.
So, what happened to the old Habitat Forum site? In 1973, the federal government of Canada officially returned the 27-acre base and the seaplane hangars to the provincial government of BC, who wanted to give it to the city of Vancouver to be used as a public facility. After Habitat, the City Council of Vancouver and more than 25 community groups submitted proposals to save the 5 huge Jericho hangars which we had so lovingly renovated and restored. Venues for concerts and shows and exhibitions of all kinds were already there. A Native Cultural Center, a Naval Aviation Museum, and an Olympic training facility were among the many imaginative ideas that came forward for the use of this historical landmark, and there was room for everyone. But the ex-chairperson of the Vancouver Parks Board, Mae Brown, made it clear that the Jericho land and the hangars were the board's sole responsibility, and the issue of their use should not come before the City Council or the public at all. Ms. Brown wanted the buildings removed to create a lawn. In spite of this, the City Council, under Mayor Jack Baldrige, voted repeatedly in 1978 to retain the hangars, but the provincial secretary, the Honourable Grace McCarthy, stepped in and ordered the City Council to give control of the site to the Parks Board. Ms. McCarthy agreed with Ms. Brown. The hangars were old and in the way, especially given the affluence of the neighborhoods nearby. The City Council continued to resist. The public outcry was loud and long. In 1979, 2 of the hangars mysteriously caught fire. Hangar 8, which housed the displays from all the different countries, burned to the ground. And the Social Center, Hangar 7, took the longest bar in the world with it when it went up in flames. Arson was suspected. No one was ever arrested or charged. But the fight to save Jericho for community use was over. By the end of the year, the rest of the buildings had been condemned and were bulldozed into rubble and waste. Sadly, and symbolically, the largest public mural ever created by Bill Reid, one of Canada's foremost artists, went down like it was nothing more than paint on a wall. Sadder still, the efforts of 10,000 volunteers turned into smoke and dust for reasons that many still can't understand. This film was lost for over 25 years, but what might have been in the hangars of Jericho Beach, it's lost forever. It's forever gone. But you know what? The energy survives. For many of us who were there to experience it, the legacy of Habitat Forum lives on. It changed our lives, and it changed our city for the better. We showed what volunteers can do when the purpose is clear and the goal is in sight. We learned how to work together and how to make the best of what we had and how to meet a challenge and how to carry on.